And while we're on the subject of pet fur, one other Christmas-related thing that I happened to see from a friend of mine, a woman, Carol, who I know from the YMCA, she pulled out a hat that she showed me about a week or so ago, and it was made of her dog's fur. So I actually looked into, I've heard of it, but I wanted to just look into that and maybe talk about that a little bit. You can go online, and there are actually people who can take your pet's fur and they can either spin it into yarn for you to knit or crochet or weave, or they can actually just go ahead and make it into mittens or into a hat or into a scarf, which is kind of cool, especially if you're a big pet lover, or maybe if you know someone who just loves pets but has everything. This would be something cool to get them. So the main requirement is that the fur has to be soft and it has to be long enough that they can spin it. So they want the fur to be at least an inch long. Otherwise, if it's shorter than that, the yarn sheds a lot and it might be prickly too. So think of like a Shar-Pei. You wouldn't want sorry Shar-Pei owners, but you probably wouldn't want a hat or a scarf made out of that. So the website that I was on said there's plenty of good breeds like Huskies, Samoyeds, Malamutes, Golden Retrievers. So any dog that has sort of a long, soft undercoat. And as far as cats go, if you wanted to do this with one of your cats' fur, long or medium-haired cats, so Persians and Ragdolls and Himalayans make excellent yarn. But they said even short-haired cats you can use. It just takes a while to collect up enough fur. So, and if you're not sure if your dog's fur would make a good hat or scarf, you can just send them a sample, and they can, I think for about $5, they'll spin you a sample of what the yarn would look like. So, and keep in mind too that if you're using your pet's fur, their undercoat isn't always the same color as their outer coat. So, for example, like a calico cat is all those colors on the outside, but your scarf wouldn't come out looking like that because calicos are actually gray on their undercoat. So how much fur would you need to get something made out of your pet's fur? It's actually not as much as you might think. Even if you only got 1 or 2 ounces of fur, they can blend that with wool to make it into a pair of mittens, or that much could make a hat. And just to get an idea, if you took a sandwich bag and stuffed it full of fur, that's about a half an ounce. So you'd need 4 to 8 sandwich bags full of fur. And then a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, why would they blend it with wool? If they blend it 50-50 with a real fine wool, that just gives the hat or the scarf more elasticity, makes it a little bit stronger. And that's important if you use just dog fur, let's say, and in particular just cat fur. If you use them without adding any wool to it, it's going to sag. It's not going to bounce back. So, I mean, that might not be a big deal if it's a scarf, but if it's a hat and you put it on your head, it's going to stretch out to the size of your head and not kind of bounce back. So that's why they blend a little bit of regular wool in there, so it's not 100% pure. So then the next question that you're probably thinking is it going to smell? Are you going to smell like a dog? And I actually smelled this Carol. I smelled her hat just to make sure, and it doesn't smell at all. They actually wash it several times before they card it and spin it, and then they wash it again after they've spun it as well. So if you want to do this, the best way to collect the fur is just by brushing or combing your pet. And remember, you want that soft undercoat, not the stiffer outer coat. And there's some dogs like Huskies, or I have a Corgi. They'll have certain times a year where they blow their coats, where they shed their undercoat in a really short period of time. That's the perfect time to collect up the fur and get it spun. Or the other thing you could do is wash your dog, and washing them sort of makes them shed more, and you could get enough fur that way to send it off and get it spun. Or if you have a dog that you take to the groomer and you get it clipped, they can even take the clippings as long as you separate out and get more of the undercoat than that outer coat. So collect the fur, just store it in a cardboard box or in a paper bag is probably a little bit better than a plastic bag. And then you send it and get it made into something. Now, the other question that I had was, how would you wash that without it falling apart? But it turns out you just wash it like any other wool hat or mittens. You just, hand wash it with dishwashing liquid and hot water, and then roll it up in a towel and just lay it flat to dry. So doesn't hurt the animals at all. A lot of people might think this is cruel, but it's not hurting the animals at all. It's the fur that's already come off of them. And you can have it dyed any color. So you can take your, gray dog and have the blue hat made out of it. It is expensive. It's for just your basic hat. It's going to be about $98. If you want an extra warm hat, like a double thickness hat with the ear flaps, the price was $150. Mittens were $98, and a scarf was $150. So kind of expensive, but if you have a pet owner who you really love and want to get them something different, you can get them a hat or gloves or scarf made out of their pet's fur.